Right, folks, it is 8 o'clock, Monday morning, level 2 lockdown for South Africans. I don't know if you folk in the UK have heard that. So we're drifting in the direction of some level of normality, but who knows what that is these days. Really not sure. So time will tell. But yeah, so it's another day, it's another week, it's another story. So Lee, I don't know if you want to just intro the morning, and then we'll hand over to Master.
Well, happy week, everyone. I hope it's going to be a wonderful week after a good weekend. Master, thank you so much for just allowing us to step into your space and hear a little bit about your story. There's really no format. There's no right way or wrong way. You say as much as you want to and share as much as you like. We would love to get to know you a bit, and we would love to just hear a little bit about your life and appreciate whatever you have to share with us. So thank you for just giving us a little bit of room into who you are. And we look forward to hearing your story.
Okay, good morning. I just put off the video to deal a bit with my anxiety. So yeah, I think it is well managed now, and then I can now be as vulnerable as you would like me to be. And also maybe just to thank Wisdom for the opportunity to be part. I'm not sure what criterion do you use to bring in people, because you are also running a risk of bringing us who may not be fitting quite well in terms of the broader vision. But I'm grateful for the faith that I see happening in the group. Now, I've been postponing quite a lot to present who I am or what I am, because I believe there are two aspects to a person. There is who you are and what you are. And then what you are changes quite often depending on the circumstances that you find yourself in. And who you are just stays on. It is not changed by circumstances. You go to the grave with who you are. And that is one part that one would like to really take care of. And that is where we draw our strength, because, you know, today you are a manager, tomorrow you have been retrenched, but master remains, the who remains, the what is gone and master remains. And if we draw our strength from our what, we may not survive the challenges of life. So yeah, we will have to strengthen that. I tried to be somehow structured. I'm not that much of a structural person. I'm not an engineer or an accountant. So I'm too social and my things are too flexible and not that structured, but I try to be somehow structured. To say, maybe to start with my education background, then, or what one may also call career. My primary, without disclosing my age now, which I don't have a problem with, but my primary school I started in 1975. I went to sub A, and I was not fortunate to do a grade, so I went to sub A, and then I did sub B. Now, one of the things that was an advantage for me at that early age was that the school that I went to at sub A and sub B, they did not do any of my mother tongues. So I had to do Zulu. That is why I don't struggle with Mpumelelo. So that was one of the advantages. So I did Zulu grade A and grade B. And yeah, we were just one class You know, the teacher will juggle around sub A and sub B in one classroom in the deep rural areas, and would walk to school for about 5 kilometers every day. Now, one of the most interesting things was when I went to school, they actually asked me my names. I did not have I did not have a birth certificate by then, and the only acceptable certificate was the baptismal certificate, and I did not have a clinic certificate because there were not clinics where I was. So for them to get my name, I had to bring a baptismal certificate. Now, my baptismal certificate, I did not have a baptismal certificate because my parents did not go to church then. So one of our relatives who used to go to the Dutch Reformed Church organized that I go to the church so that I could get a birth certificate. I got a birth certificate, but it bear the name Master, Master Mahlobogoane. Now, when I arrived at school and I gave them the birth certificate, they said, we will not admit you, or we will admit you, but you still have to have an African name. And I went back home to fetch an African name, which I did not have, or which I did not even know by then. You know, for the first time that I knew about it was in 1975. So I gave them the African name, and then they scratched Master. So I was Stephen Master Mahlobogoane. So the Stephen name represented what they called then a Christian name. You know, you have to have a Christian name and an African name. So that is how they differentiated the two. But then I learned at an early age how I got to be Master. When I was born in those rural areas, my grandmother was working somewhere in Joburg. And when I was born, they brought her home to come and see me. And then I learned the bars then, the Mlungu, gave me the name that, no, this boy is Master Theron. I'm naming him after my father. Now, that is how I got to get the name. And now, I mean, in 1975, just before, I mean, I know I'm not in that age when I was born, I got that name. So I grew up being known as Master. When I went to school, I was known as Master. And all of a sudden, I have to have a differentiation between an African name and a Christian name. And by that time, of course, except that it has to be either African or Christian, I did not know the power of the name. So I think later on, I'll also tell you how I got to ensure that that name ends up on my ID document and do away with an African name. My secondary school years, I went to a secondary in the same village, but the last 2 years of my secondary years, my father decided that I must go to a boarding school, which I think was one of the greatest decisions that he took, because I was then exposed to people who came from the urban areas. And people who came, Mpumelelo knows that, people that came from Katlehong and other areas in the East Rand, and most of them came from Tembisa in the boarding school that I was in. You know, they thought they were the most cleverest people ever. They knew everything and everything. So they tried to bully us. Fortunately, I was a bit intelligent in class, so I would help them with homeworks, and you know, those were some of the advantages that I had over them, was that I would help them with some schoolwork. In 1986, when I was doing matric, we had some uprisings, and it was difficult then. I mean, we stayed away for about plus minus 6 months without going to, 4 months without going to school. And I still had to write my matric. So fortunately, by the grace of the Lord, and with the intellect that I had, I managed to pass. But I was not happy with my pass mark or pass rate. I then, you know, my father said, no, let's do this. Let's go to a college of education. If they take you, then you'll continue. But if they don't, you must just come back and do, because I wanted to do some engineering. I wanted to be an engineer, even if I did not know what engineering was out there. But yeah, I've heard this word engineering, and it was engineering me to my interest to do engineering. Because like I said the other time, you know, we in the rural areas were quite one of the best imaginative people ever, because you would be given a composition to write about a journey by train, and we haven't seen a train. So you would use your imagination and still get your marks. And that is how one got to learn. Now, I passed matric and I went to a teacher's college. Fortunately, by God's grace, there was one of the lecturers. I mean, we went there, I don't know, for some funny reason, for the whole week. We were doing some psychometric tests and whatever for the whole week, and doing some little exams to gain admission. I still remember the trauma that people went through when they were not admitted, having been to a college. I mean, you tell people that you are going to a college, after a week you are told you are not admitted. So it was such a traumatic situation. That was in 1987. And yeah, I went to Ndebele College. And 1989, my father was retrenched. And I had to make a decision whether I drop out and have some funny kind of a gap year. Those years, that term was not used, but it's either you drop out, you go and teach a bit and come back and accumulate some money and continue with your studies. But fortunately, by God's grace, I don't even know, even up to today, how I finished my college years and started teaching in 1990. 1990, I started teaching in KwaMhlanga, the former KwaNdebele. By the way, the 1986 were the uprisings in that area where that homeland wanted some independence. So that was the reason why we had those uprisings. So when I was at the boarding school, you know, I mean, people who came from Katlehong, Pumelelo, you know, they used to strike a lot and say this and that and challenge management, you know, at school. So I developed some interest in politics in that particular year. And 1990, I started teaching, and then I joined 1990. SATU was not there, but there was some teacher associations and stuff like that. Got very active in the teacher unions, and then later on I got promoted as an HOD. I'll summarize this part because for me it was not the most interesting part of my life, because I started realizing how hypocritical politics can be. I was a SATU member, a leader within SATU, and I was due for promotion, and because I was not I used to challenge the leadership a lot on some of the issues that they would raise that were very controversial. And yeah, I was sidelined all the way until, for the lack of better word, if I would borrow some word from Cape Town, until I became heartful. And I said, this is not for me. I'd rather not be part of this thing. And then I decided, I was elected in SANCO. Those who know SANCO, the South African National Civic Organization, which is one part of the ANC alliance, in 2003. And the same year, I decided to resign because I could not see. I could not see any future. I saw that, you know what, I have reached my ceiling and I will not go further within this particular profession. I liked it, but it was no more giving me that particular fulfillment. A gentleman who was also my mentor politically, and coincidentally, he was also one of Malema's mentors, very close to Winnie Mandela, said to me, Master, you are adding no value at school because you are there the whole day, and then from there, I mean, we still have to deal with a lot of transformation issues within the society. So rather come in and join the private sector or the corporate world or something like that, and let's see what happens. You know, he was in the language of business stroke politics, he was highly connected. So I trusted that, you know what, he'll make it for me. I'll make it out there. Unfortunately, 18 days later, he passed on in a car accident. So I was so frustrated. I did not know where to go. But fortunately, like I said, I mean, God has always been there for me. And I managed to, I mean, in one of the meetings, I met one gentleman who introduced to one, for the sake of the discussion again, a white fellow, Fleb Joubert, who was into construction, project management. And having heard that I come from the civic movement, they used to have a lot of problems with their projects. You know, they would have a project steering committee, and, you know, project steering committee was also a platform of politics that they would either sabotage the project or just hold the project at ransom. So my role was more like social mobilization and stakeholder management in that. So one of the things that I learned by then was that, I mean, it was more at the hype of BE and transformation, and and I developed a view around broad-based Black economic empowerment as I observed it, and I think, and this is my personal view, is that the reason why BE will not work, and it is not working, it is at times it is just a matter of pure color and no talent, no real value add into some of these things. So I worked with that guy, even though his company was not that transformed, but I learned one thing. He was so interested in me developing. I mean, the value that he added to me was so valuable that I could, you know, maneuver and be a real hustler because of what I learned from him. One of the statements that I still remember quite well, when I met him in 2003, he said, Master, if I see you driving a Mercedes-Benz, it must not be because of me. And if you see me driving a Mercedes-Benz, it must not be because I sacrificed something that you should have got in the process. And that was very profound for me because I started learning that I really need to add value into people's life without prioritizing myself as to what is it that I can get out of this. It must be about what is it that I will add there to add in the whole relationship, so that all of us are, you know, are benefiting from such a relationship. So I was still participating in politics. 2007, when politics got more rotten, and the President Beki was ousted, in the build-up towards him being ousted, because I was in the national structure of SANCO. I used to sit in the alliance meeting, and one of the crucial topics that we once spoke, I mean, we once discussed here was about perception. There I learned how people can build a perception around you, and it will hold until that perception defines you. And again, my philosophy of who and what you are held that time, because now they started creating a story and a perception around Mbeki, and they sold it. I mean, like, you know, it's like branding. When a person says we are going to have a, what do they call it when they, yeah, I think they just branded that thing, that perception around him, because he was not an easy ride over. Your blades and everybody else couldn't just say anything to him. And he would say to them, you know what, if you want to build the SACP, don't build it on the back of the ANC. Just do it on your own. And for that, because he was strong, they could not just, you know, push him over. So they started creating a perception. I mean, we know very well that he was one amongst the first to talk about a woman president, a possible woman president. And that is why in his camp, when he lost in 2007, he had Nkosazana Zuma then to be his deputy, to be his deputy president. But for some reasons, and I mean, within the alliance, it was said, no, this guy is a patriarchy, is patriarchal, he doesn't want this and that, and they sold that thing. And then they started branding our 9-year disaster president and as the person, the people's person, and everything else. And by then I decided that 2007, me and politics, I'd rather play away, because you end up being a people's person. I mean a person's person. Person owns you. Your life is more like patronage. You don't speak up your mind and stuff like that. So I decided, no, this is not for me. So jumping back to family, I am unfortunately divorced. The 17th of January 2020, I was receiving my divorce decree. Now, I am family oriented, and my marriage happened, I mean, the destruction of my marriage happened so sudden that I'm still amazed. In my 20 years of marriage, I've never been to a marriage counselor, and I've never consulted where I would say, between me and my wife, this is what we can't get along with, and all of a sudden, I mean, it happened as sudden as I say sudden. I still remember it was the 30th of November, 2018. My wife and my son went out to buy some takeaways. It was a Friday. And then they asked me, hey, what do you like to eat? I said, no, I'm fine. Just bring me some chicken wings. And that was a Friday. Saturday, my wife packed and left. And then they started packing. I mean, but in actual fact, I had seen some signs that, you know, there's things that are starting to be missing in the house. But I never took it that serious, that it could happen that way. So then, and that was it. And that was 2018, the 1st of December. That is when they left, and up to today, we tried everything else possible to rescue the marriage, but yeah, it could not happen. But yesterday I was a bit somehow consoled. I was listening to one of the sermons on YouTube, and this guy was preaching about this prostitute in Luke chapter 7, verse 36 to 48, I think. And he says, you know, let your interruption not define you. When life is interrupted, let it not define you. And it went back to my who and what, to say, who am I? Am I still that person that I believe to be, as opposed to what am I? Because there are people who will judge you by whether you are married or not married. There are areas where when you say you are not married or you're not divorced, it's like we have killed 78 people in one shot. You find yourself being as rejected as all that. So especially even in some churches, you get really rejected because a person irresponsibly says God does not love divorce. Yes, God does not love divorce, but God loves his people. That is why he gave us his only begotten son, whether you are divorced or not. So when I listened to that sermon, it reminded me, because they say Jesus looked at this woman while he was talking to Simon the Pharisee and said to him, your sins are forgiven. Now, it was after he had broken the alabaster jar, and then they thought, I mean, this Simon Pharisee said, couldn't Jesus realize that this woman was a prostitute? I mean, he being who he is, being sent by God, he could have, but Jesus knew, but he did not look at her as a prostitute. He looked at her as a person that has converted, who has actually given up her life to him. How am I doing on time?
Fine,
Yeah.
Master. Yeah, flux.
Okay. Yeah. So coming back to business, I was involved in construction until 2008. 2008, I attempted to do something called MBA, and with the University of Stellenbosch, I'm a lifelong learner. I like learning, and I did not make it. And then I came back. By God's grace, I got a farm that I leased from government in 2011. And I don't know, I cannot even explain myself how I got to get it. And all of a sudden I had to start a new passion in the agricultural sector or in the farming sector. So because I was also coming from a development background in terms of my politics and stuff like that, I then decided to go to the University of Free State to do development studies. So when I arrived there, the professor looked at my profile and everything else. I gave him a business card. He said, no, man, why don't you do a master's in sustainable agriculture? And I still treasure that day. I then did my master's in sustainable agriculture, and my topic was, which is something that I'm quite passionate about, the influence of intergenerational knowledge and experience on sustainable farming. I will send you I'll send you an article which is an extract of that study, and that is something that I think Herman has got that copy. But then that is something that is keeping me in the industry. I don't think the industry, the approach to transformation of the industry is right, because you sometimes put a mouse and an elephant together to work together and make decision on a huge project or on a huge project like farming, and it is not going well. And one of the reasons I picked up when I was doing that particular study is that a white farmer, Ken Burki, started learning to drive a tractor at the age of 12. And at the age of 12, he can recognize and identify a sick animal. And while they're sitting and having dinner with the parents and everybody else, they have discussions around such things. So learning is more informal and through playing and stuff like that. And over time, most of the black so-called farmers, because most of those that got farms are those who had an opportunity to have worked on the farm. But one of the things that the government did not realize is that all these years, these people were working under instruction. A person did not know why he must tend the soil when there is no rain or something like that, or why having tend the soil, you have to plant in. So it was just instructions and instructions over time. Even if a person had been on the farm for more than 20 years, but his experience was just equivalent to mine of 3 months because he was just working under instruction. So the knowledge is important within that particular industry. And how do we accelerate that knowledge? Because it's a decades and decades of knowledge that was lost in the process. So I see it's 8:32. I'm not sure up to how far can I go, but I think I'm almost there.
Okay, Master. I mean, if you're almost there, then please feel free to finish off. I don't think there's any issue with us running a little bit over time. So yeah, I'd hate to disrupt you for a couple of minutes. So if you've got 5 or 10 minutes to go, that's fine.
Okay. Let me jump a bit, but let me finish the agricultural part. I'm now trying to see how best I can make that a core kind of my business. And even though I may want to do some other things, but with the view or with the vision of bringing real transformation in the sector without harming the sector. Because we know how most of the sectors have been harmed by mere coloring the sector without bringing the real change that has to come into that particular sector. Now, let me leave it for now. We'll continue maybe individually as the lockdown goes to level 1. We'll be able to visit and take the story further. From a spiritual point of view, I am saved and I believe in God, and that is where I draw my strength. Now, going back to my name, I went to a conference, and in that conference, they were preaching about names. And this pastor, it was multiracial kind of setting. It was in 2004, if I'm not, what year is this? 2014. Yeah, 2014, 2013, I attended a conference here in Pretoria, a prophetic conference, and somebody was preaching about names. And he made an example about an Afrikaner family, that the mother and the father would fight as to who they named their child. And then the other one would say, no, it's my father, it's Christopher, it's Chris. And then the one would say, no, it's Jan, it's my father, it's my grandfather, it's Jan. So at some point, they will then come to some compromise and call this child Chris Jan. Now, he says to us, that thing has a potential of bringing a confused personality, because whatever you name a person after might confuse. I mean, Jan has got his own personality and Chris has got his own personality. So you bring all those personalities into this one person called Chris Jan. And that is when I decided, that African name that I was just, was just forced on me. I'd rather do something about it. And then I went to Home Affairs, and then I said, I'm bringing back my master. Because also in politics, I was somehow, they used to ask me, hey, what you remember in 1994, we no more had Sam Shilowa. All of a sudden, we have somebody called Mbazima, and we'll have people called Lekota, Musiwa, and everybody else was like, thought, transformation also should go to that extent. I was not fascinated by that. And they used to tease me and say, you cannot be called master. I said, no, I'm master. And then I told them my story, because I don't think my grandmother's boss had any, mischievous intentions to name me, after his father. It was something that was profound for me. I mean, the name also challenges me. I need to master my own life. I need to master my destiny, So and some of my nice Afrikaner friends used to call me, ask me, are you really master? I said, yes. This is my opportunity for you to call me boss, but in English.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thanks.
Fantastic. Thanks, Master. Really, really appreciate you giving us those insights and into your life and history, and also I think certainly for me, some real insights into those early years moving into the new dispensation. It's a perspective that we don't often get to see as white people. So really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. So yeah, I don't know if we can do a quick whip around the group, maybe just for a last comment. He says no. Okay, so we'll save comments maybe for a later time. But Master, thanks so much again. And Lee, yeah.
I'm interrupting because I really would like us to honor Master and I think his story, but also Master, the way that you describe certain things and the insights that you bring. I mean, even this last thing where you talk about, you own your name and that it becomes a challenge to you of mastering your life and mastering your destiny. I mean, we could spend time just dwelling on that. So I would really invite us to take time tomorrow to respond to Master and to reflect on his story. So if we could do that, I think that would be wonderful.
Excellent. Fantastic. Thanks, Leah. I think that's an excellent suggestion. Okay, folks, on that note, reflect and see if you can master your thoughts for tomorrow morning, and then we'll chat to Master again. So have a fantastic day further and go well.
Sorry, can I just interrupt 1 more minute and just to I don't know if I've said it clearly enough, just to thank you, Master, for just the thought and the willingness to share deeply and to trust us with vulnerable parts of your life and opening real aspects of who you are and what has happened in your life and making that distinction as well for us. So I really, really want to thank you. It's been an absolute privilege to listen and share this morning. Thank you so much.
Hello. Just one thing, the chat's comments, because I did not have an opportunity to read them. How do I get?
I'll send them through with the email later today.
Okay. Thanks.
Good. Fantastic. Thanks. Thanks everybody. Great day further. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Go well.